One. People are still coming in, but we're going to get started in just a couple minutes. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Bienvenue à tous. Welcome to today's learning and development session, Demystifying Entrepreneurial Will. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge, honor, and pay respect to the traditional owners and custodians from all four directions of the land on which I gather on, which is known as Sackville, New Brunswick. It is upon the ancestral and unceded lands of the Mi'kmaq people, and I'd like to begin by acknowledging that. Walalia. Please feel free to let us know in the chat where you're coming from. And if you don't know where that is, you can visit nativeland.ca, which is also in the chat, and see where you are coming from. So my name is Krista Steves, and I'm thrilled to be facilitating today's session. I love entrepreneurial will. There's no secret there. And today we're going to talk about demystifying entrepreneurial will in Canada. I'm the regional director, regional associate director for WIL Canada, specifically supporting the iHub program, which has been funded through the ESDC Canada. I'm going to jump right in today because we have a jam-packed day or afternoon and introduce today's panelists who have so graciously volunteered to tell us about their iHub projects. After each of our three panelists, there'll be an opportunity for questions, and then we'll have some time at the end. So first up, we have Neil Lilliot from George Brown College, who will be telling us about Start GBC WIL Entrepreneurship Program. I'll hand it over to you, Neil, to tell us about your role and this project at George Brown. Neil?
Thank you so much, Krista. And hi, everybody. I'm just going to share my screen, so bear with me just a second as we do that lovely technology piece, but here we go. Okay. Hi, everybody. So my name is Neil Lilliot. I manage an entrepreneurial incubator at George Brown College. George Brown College is on the traditional territories of the Mississaugas of New Credit and Toronto, Canada. And we are not an academic center, so I don't report into an academic center. So I'm going to talk about a project that we brought to a pilot program that we launched in with WIL and the success that it delivered to some of our entrepreneurs. We created a pilot program, which we are now repeating, but unfortunately our participants no longer receive a monetary payment at the end, but obviously that all depends on funding as we go through. But we'll talk about what we did, how we structured it, and what the outcomes were. Krista, can you hear okay? So just make sure that you can hear me okay and everything.
I can hear you, Neil.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you. So first off, why did we do it? We know that more and more students are going to become entrepreneurs. We know that the workplace is changing. I think we are all in agreement on that one. But what often happens with academia is we don't give the student enough time to actually work on that program. So we wanted to create something that was not attached directly to academic centers, but was seen as an outside support service where they would still be able to get some academic credit through their work integrated learning co-op placement alternative. So to increase that entrepreneurship, and we at George Brown, we see the importance of both creating for-profit and non-profit organizations. And we treat it as a saying that they need to go through the same kinds of processes that if you are a not-for-profit, you still have to run, you're still running a business, you still have the obligations of tax filing and employment, etc. So it's about trying to take them out of that mindset that we would often teach in the academic world about creating on not-for-profits, but putting that business slant onto it. So we wanted to provide a sandbox for students to actually come into our service and work on from the ideation to the commercialization of their business. Now they come in for a 12-week program. So it's, you know, a lot of them don't have the time to actually go to that commercialization piece, but we're working heavily on the ideation of what's the true problem that they're trying to solve. We wanted to create an opportunity for these students to actually network with people within their industries, mentorship, advisors, etc., so that they could build a greater understanding of how their industry works, how they could perhaps become a disruptor with that in that industry. And we wanted to create a flexible hybrid learning. So we wanted some structure there that we would create workshops that they would be mandatory, that they would have to come and participate within, but then also have hybrid learning, self-directed learning, where they could use a number of tools that we provided them to then work further on developing their commercial activity, their program. So who are we? As I say, Start GBC is a non-academic center. We are an entrepreneur support center designed to help support both students, alumni, and community members within the Greater Toronto area. We are a free service, we're a free support service, and we're paid out of general college funds rather than academic center. We report into student success and work heavily with research and innovation as well. And we create our extracurricular activities. So all of our events, etc., are extracurricular activity. And we're just there to help get students to be able to do co-curricular record activities that they're going to be able to achieve some recognition for from that. So we created a 12-week program so that they start at the beginning of each semester on this program, and we deliver 12 3-hour workshops, and they're very intensive workshops, and they have a vast range from going from that ideation through to financial literacy, legal requirements, marketing, communications, all of these elements. But we're trying to remove barriers, demystify entrepreneurship through removing self-imposed barriers. So making sure that all of the students are aware that it doesn't matter what gender they are, what age they are, what ethnicity are, and what socioeconomic background they are. As long as they have developed the right entrepreneurial mindset, they can actually go forth and build out a business. Obviously, some of those barriers that we are impose upon ourselves. We wanted to create something that mixed for-profit and social innovation. So we wanted to build awareness around social responsibility. Most for-profit organizations these days are very much thinking about that social responsibility piece. And Canada actually leads on a number of programs to help build in that thought process at the beginning. And we wanted to create something that we could build on our pitch competition so that these students could actually perhaps go on to find some more seed money. And we wanted to create a platform that was going to give them mentorship. All of the participants of the WIL program needed to complete 6 assignments on there so that we could absolutely understand whether they were taking in, digesting the information, working on it, and producing something meaningful that was going to be worked on. Outside of these 12 3-hour workshops, students could request one-on-one coaching services throughout the program. And we were building on that skill all the time so that they could actually then take that workshop information and check in to see whether they were using it correctly, the use of the tools correctly, etc. And everything that we do at George Brown College at the moment, and certainly at Start GBC, is building information around the human skills framework. We are very much about, I can't teach people to be an entrepreneur, I'm not that, but I can teach people the soft skills that they need in order to build out an entrepreneurial activity. So those soft skills and having that self-reflection built in is really important for us. The focus of the whole program is really about them understanding that value proposition. And again, demystifying, that figure in Canada that 7 out of 10 businesses cease to trade within the first 5 years is very much at the forefront of our mind. And that value proposition, again, in the academic world, we often think about students coming up with a solution, coming up with innovative solutions. And we really focus on rolling that one back and understanding the problem. If the more we understand the actual problem, the greater the solution will be. 42, the number one reason why those businesses cease to trade, 42% on exit interviews will say that there was no market size, no market fit. Simply, the entrepreneur hadn't proven a need. They had made too many assumptions about the solution that they were providing, rather than concentrating on the problem that they were actually addressing. So those standard business pillars, as I say, business plans, business model canvas, value proposition canvas, empathy mapping, design thinking, financial literacy, pitching skills. These were all of the focus that we were, the customer engagement, customer acquisition, all of these elements were the key business pillars we were focused on. And we wanted to provide tools that were going to help students to really understand how they got to the root of the problem, really understood that problem, and empathy maps, as they value proposition canvas, etc. We wanted to create networks for them so that they could actually speak to people in like-minded industry or in cross-pollination industries, so that they, just because an industry has done something for the last 20 years this way, doesn't mean that someone else in a different academic center doesn't come at it from a different way. So we wanted to create more. And as I say before, the human skills framework is really at the heart of everything that we're trying to achieve at George Brown. Obviously, the big challenge of the pilot program was that we were not in person. This was all delivered online, and we are on our third rollout of this program now, and we are still online. And I have to say that I confess I'm one of those people that cannot wait to get back in person, but online is, so we created a whole swath of tools that they could plug into at any point. So using Sway, all of the workshops are linked into there, a number of resources that they can tap into from around the system, the network, funding opportunities, etc., all delivered through there, hyperlinked. We created Padlets so that the students could speak to each other. Again, that whole piece about cross-pollination of academic centers so that they could be more engaged with the thought process of each other, testing out surveys, etc., on each other, so we could get some meaningful feedback so that they could really sort of work on that. All students got a free account of Canva so that they could work on their marketing activities, their presentations, etc. And we gave them free access to a Canadian tool called Deal Prep, where they could issue contracts and understand and learn about contracts and legal obligations, non-disclosure agreements, and founders agreements, and all these sorts of things. So a whole swath of tools were provided free of charge to the students as they went through this process. And we're pleased to say that the impact of this, the pilot, was we had 26 students complete this. We actually had 30, but 4 students were international students, so they weren't allowed to obtain the monetary piece. They all got $1,600 for their participation. This is the first time we've ever been able to give a honorarium to our participants of Start GBC, and it had a huge impact. Especially as we go in and highlight the companies that we actually got to float through this. We had, obviously there was with the whole program, it's very much about trying to support underrepresented communities. And I'm pleased to say that we had 24 women versus 6 men, 20 from the BIPOC community, 4 LGBTQ, 8 students that identified with disabilities. So 85% of our reported return came from the underrepresented groups that WIL set out, but that's not unusual for George Brown College. With the location that we're at, we service and provide opportunities for a number of people within those communities. So that was huge impact. We created, there was $200 per student, so we took something like $6,000 to pay for a member of staff to support these students, which allowed me to then channel budget from my normal operating budget into a pitch competition. And we went out and got some match funding from an outside funder. So we actually put on the table $10,000. And of those 26, well, actually of those 30 students from the initial WIL, 22 of them entered the competition for further opportunity to get pitch funding. So again, we gave them opportunity to get some more seed funding to actually launch something. And I'm pleased to say that so far, out of those 30 participants, we actually have 5 companies now incorporated and 4 social enterprises that set up. So 9 out of the 30 have already gone forward and taken their ideas to fruition. I'm pleased to say that one of them, a great one, Maple Mountain Coolers, just about to is in negotiations at the moment with angel investors for $600,000 investment. Another one with Novo Bags, again, just raised $50,000 in investment. So some really cool opportunities. Box of Six, another one where Kat has actually set up a neighborhood box system where she creates a neighborhood businesses, an item from each business, and sent it out on a subscription thing. So some very interesting concepts that were launched, and we're very proud of that from one WIL program, which was great. And as I say, we've started to do this as every semester. We're repeating this, and students can now come in and either do this as a WIL, or they could do it as co-curricular record activity. So if they aren't entitled, they do not need to have work integrated learning. They could still come in at the time that they want, and they will get co-curricular activity record assigned to them. And they all earn a micro-credential as well. And that's my piece. I believe that we're taking Q&A at the end, Krista. So
yeah, does anyone have a question for Neil before we move on to Lisa? Any questions in the chat? If you do have a question, you can just unmute yourself, use the hand feature, and ask Neil a question. Or we can move on and we can save our questions till the end. Oh, Angela, boss, you have a question. Go ahead.
Thank you, Krista. Neil, I just wanted some clarification on, so you said you had 4 international students participate in the program, but they didn't receive the stipend, so?
Under the CWIL program, they're not entitled to get that stipend, and unfortunately, that's the only funding we had. Start GBC receives no other funding from the college other than my salary, so it's only what money that we can raise through funding, and that would be my big drawback. We're on our 3rd semester of running the WIL. Obviously, for the last 2 semesters, we've not been able to give a stipend, and I really believe that we actually got 5 actually set up because they actually used that stipend to seed fund some of their activity to register, etc. So that would be my only sort of downside. But the international student piece is always a bit of a problem that we have on funding.
Yeah, I wonder if there's maybe some provincial or other funding that international students would be eligible to make this a more equitable program in that sense, because it does seem.
I totally agree, but unfortunately it's because of the visa status they're on. Obviously their visa status, they cannot be recourse to public funds. So if it's got any if it's got any government funding attached to it at all, then it's always going to unfortunately restrict international students. So we kind of need to fight with someone needs to create a fund where it's designed for that activity, really. But I agree with you. It's not, and at the moment I would say, well, I wouldn't on this current semester, 50% of the students are international students versus domestic. So that makes a big difference, right?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Angela. Heather, your hand's up. Go ahead.
Hi there. Thanks, Neil. 2 questions. Are you the only instructor that's delivering these workshops? Are you sharing that instruction with other people on campus?
Yeah, so I am, because it's, again, Start GBC is set up as the employer. So I can't use faculty time to work on the program. Therefore, I deliver all of those workshops. However, saying that, I will often use our mentors and advisors to then come in and top up some of that complementary information. So for legals, I'm obviously not a registered lawyer. I will give an overview of it, and then I will always invite a law firm to come in and actually give that piece. Accountancy as well, HST, etc. I will use our advisory and mentor advisors for those sorts of things.
Awesome. My second question is, so did it start out as a WIL option or a co-curricular option, or did it start at the same time?
We actually started it as a WIL at the beginning, and then we quickly reverted over to offering it as either WIL or co-curricular. We just launched a co-curricular record, an official co-curricular record structure at the college, and it launched this week. So we tied into that. Before that, we always run the program as a 12-week program through fundamentals, entrepreneur fundamentals, and they would just get a micro credential that we would issue through Badger. So it didn't have any impact to them. Now they will actually get co-curricular activity as well. So we started from WIL, we got into co-curricular quickly.
Great, thanks so much.
Thank you.
And I have one more question in the chat for you, Neil, before we move on. From Clara, she says, great project. Question about mentorship. Who was the mentor, a current faculty or staff member? And how did the participants get mentorship?
Okay, so again, I don't use any faculty members on this program, obviously, because we have a number of issues around which academic center we would use and all these sorts of things. So all of our mentor advisors, we have 42 mentor advisors that all from industry. So these would be people that would give their time, and then all of the participants, and again, we do it in a very different way than a lot of people. We don't assign a dedicated mentor to people for the entire 12 weeks. Say someone is working on, they want to register their business this week. So we would then use a mentor with legal background. If there was international students, even though the CE WIL doesn't cover that, but those four, if they wanted to talk about whether they were allowed to set up a business in Canada, we would use an immigration law firm that speaks on that thing. So it would all depend on what they're marketing. If there was someone in marketing, if someone was working out their social media campaign strategies, we would use particular advisors at that time. So they're giving an access to our portal, startgbc.com/mentors, /advisors, and then they would ask me to connect them to people, or I would say, I think you need to speak to so-and-so during our one-on-ones. I would say, I'll connect you to that. So our mentorship is absolutely external. No one internal to the organization is used.
Great. Thanks so much, Neil. Okay, now we're going to move on. If you have any questions, save them for the end. We will have some time for some more questions, but we're going to move on to Lisa Jarvis and Heather Montgomery from Wilfrid Laurier University, who led a capstone in social entrepreneurship program. I think Lisa is doing the presentation and Heather will join us for questions. Lisa, over to you.
Thanks so much. And yeah, Heather's here with me today as well. And thanks to you, Neil, too, for going first. It's always great to come to these events and be on panels because I get to learn so much from my fellow panelists. So thank you for starting us off. My name is Lisa, and I work in we call ourselves Community and Workplace Partnerships at Laurier, and we're a centralized hub for curricular experiential learning under the Career Development and Experiential Learning umbrella here at Laurier. So this particular presentation is about IHUB funding we received for Social Entrepreneurship 400, the capstone in our social entrepreneurship option, which is the first Canadian undergraduate social entrepreneurship program to be rooted and housed in the liberal arts. And it's an 8-month capstone course where students really make the transition to become a social entrepreneur. They create a venture to be launched during the final stage of the academic year. Along the way, they receive support and mentorship from community partners, social entrepreneurs, faculty, and our student social entrepreneur in residence, and other experts who walk with them from concept to launch. With the funding that we received, each student in the course this year got a modest amount of seed money to help with their launch, as well as reduce barriers for some of them as well. And also, we were able to provide recognition in the form of an honorarium to some of those community partners and experts that I mentioned, as they really, they provide that authentic learning context in the WIL experience, and so provided training, consultation, and feedback. So I'm going to hand it over to my video here, because the students and partners in the video will say more about it, I think, than I can. And you'll hear from Shrey, who's one of our students who created his own venture, improving access for students to their student dental plans and benefits, and worked with local dental offices in our area. And then Alana participated in what we called Track 2, and it was the first time that we launched this stream in the course, and the iHub funding allowed us to provide an honorarium to community partners so that they could welcome one of these students to work on a social enterprise that's already housed within their organization, or that they're looking to launch. So the student worked alongside the organization rather than creating their own venture. So you'll hear more about it. I'm going to try share my screen, and I'll get a thumbs up hopefully from Krista that all is well once I go, and everybody's good.
Thumbs up, Lisa. It looks good.
Thumbs up. Okay, let's see if this, oh, you know what? I'm gonna do one more thing. I'm gonna try again and just make sure. Okay, and the sound, yeah. Okay.
You might have to turn your sound up if you have earbuds on.
The music to start is a bit quiet.
This was a course that allowed me to build my own venture from the ground up. It gave me an amazing exposure in doing so. And this was a social venture, so it is something that I'm proud about, because it does do good in the local community, and it also allows me to focus on entrepreneurship, which is something I'm very passionate about and something that I still do.
Hi, my name is Alana McDonald. I am currently pursuing my Master's of Communications at Laurier, and I recently graduated last spring with my Bachelor's of Communications with the Social Entrepreneurship option. The SE400 course was by far one of the most memorable and helpful courses that I had taken during my undergrad. It provided me with the perfect opportunity of blending both the theoretical concepts with the practical application of working on a social venture that had real-world effects.
One of the exposures that I learned was the importance of research. I think that was very important, because it really opened my eyes up to the opportunities out there, the type of industry that I'm about to enter, and the different perspectives that stakeholders have, so students, faculty, dental hygienists. So it really allowed me to open up my eyes. And the second aspect of it is networking. This opened up a lot of doors for me. I still keep in touch with the dental hygienists that I interviewed, with the students that voice their opinions on their insurance benefits.
I chose to partner with Reception House Waterloo Region on their Working Together project, which is a community-based project that helps assist incoming refugees into the Waterloo Region community and workforce. I was focused on marketing the program to local partner organizations, but I also got to sit in on many important meetings with stakeholders, existing partners, and Reception House staff for a very holistic experience. This was an excellent opportunity for me to have a first-time, hands-on experience with a social enterprise and to see how it operates day to day. This was both a humbling and exciting experience because I became very aware of how much work and dedication it takes to develop and successfully run a social enterprise, and I was excited to see that this amazing program created a real-world impact on local residents.
My name is Stacy Mitchell, and I'm the Manager of Community and Employment Supports at KW Habilitation. We've had the pleasure of working with students from the social entrepreneur classes at Laurier in the past year on a couple of projects. The value of this partnership is twofold. Our staff have the great opportunity of mentoring some students through this process. In addition, the students have the opportunity to learn about our organization and the work that we do. The projects done during these partnerships are of great value for the supports and services that we provide.
It allowed me to, play around with things that I've never been able to do before. It allowed me to budget resources for marketing, for sales, getting business cards, starting a booth where students would come and educate them and booking them for appointments. So overall, that was a great help, and I just want to thank you again so much for the opportunity from behalf of
SC400 was a significant contributor in inspiring me to pursue my master's, since I would like to connect my work in communications and social entrepreneurship to social justice policy reform on a provincial and federal level. Thank you.
Thank you all. I hope you were able to hear that. Okay, I know it starts off quiet. So thank you for the time. I'm going to leave it now for my other panelists. We have one more panelist here to share, but certainly I'll take any questions, and Heather's here also to assist with questions from the group.
Lisa, I think we have time for one question. Thank you for that presentation. Alain?
Thank you for sharing. That's a really cool project and program for the students. I'm curious about the distinction between the two tracks. Specifically, did those students who participated in track 2 also participated in the workshops on how to build a social enterprise, or did they operate more from a conventional work placement experience?
No, they participated fully in the course. So the workshops were offered to all students in the course, because again, those skills and experiences are certainly transferable to work within an organization. And so they were bringing that learning and that expertise to the venture that they were working on with our community partners. And just to say, we work with many of these partners we work with for other types of WIL at Laurier, so community service learning namely, but also internship. And it offered us a way to serve our partners with a different skill set and a different group of students. And also to say this course and this option at Laurier draws from across many disciplines. So it's a very interdisciplinary approach. And so again, our partners receive that perspective that they might not have received, just doing classes that they typically do with us. So it was an opportunity for us to serve partners in a new way. It was really exciting. And we're continuing with that offering in this next cohort. Thanks for the question, Ellen.
Thank you, Lisa. So remember, if you have any other questions for Lisa, save them up. We'll have some time at the end. But now we're going to move on to our third and final panelist, Brendan McNeil, who joins us from the Maple League. And if you don't know what the Maple League of Universities is, it is a consortium of 4 small institutions on the East Coast, Acadia, Mount Allison, Bishops, and St. FX. And Brendan is here to tell us about a project that he's working on. It's called The Path, and it's a project that brings all 4 of these institutions together. So Brendan, welcome.
Thank you, Krista. That was a great introduction. I'm going to share my screen now and so you have something other than my well-lit face to look at. Right, should be good to go. So first and foremost, I'm Brendan McNeil, the manager of this program. I work for a faculty director, Dr. Michael Shepard from Acadia, who's unable to make it today. And I am a recent graduate from Acadia University's finance program. And this is mine and Michael's kind of passion project and concept that we have built over the past number of years. And funny story, Charlene and Krista were members of our original working group when this was conceived, and stakeholders were brought together across the Maple League to discuss what this project might look like. They were there from the beginning and very helpful in helping us get to here today as well before they went to WIL. So with that, I'll go into the path. What we are essentially is a student startup incubator with the vision of every student with an idea, a passion, or an ambition to have the ability to turn that into a pitch-ready startup while at university. So we operate virtually across the Maple League and primarily to create economies of scale and scope in these university communities that are very similar. The Maple League Consortium is formed because these are all primarily undergraduate liberal arts universities in rural settings. And so it only makes sense to solve this challenge across the universities together instead of just one-off. And so it's obviously the 4 universities that Krista mentioned already, and built on 4 pillars, or 3 pillars from the beginning. That being social purpose, the focus on people, the planet, and profits. Rural, so that is, because of where universities are focusing on engagement and economic impact in our regions. And last, but probably most importantly, is being accessible. This is another problem identified over the years, that many more students than just entrepreneurship students or even just business students want to be or can be an entrepreneur and need these supports. And so that's probably our most important pillar, is being accessible to any student in the university, as well as any student at any stage of development. So the problem that we are working on solving is a problem in the local ecosystem, and that has a gap at the university level as well. That is that all the support for entrepreneurs and startups in Eastern Canada is for startups that are already launched or are trying to scale, with essentially no support at the concept and business modeling stages. So we created the path to fill that gap at the university level. We provide 3 essential ingredients that we've identified are really the most important in launching a successful business. The first is training, provided through Lean Stack Academy. That is traditional, that we've heard today already, going through identifying a problem that a customer has, creating a business model canvas around that, testing that, and then validating that with customers and going on into building a product and launching. Lean Stack Academy is a great online platform that has step-by-step playbooks all the way through all those stages. So that helps us be accessible to any stage of development. Secondly is alumni mentorship, drawing on the strength of our alumni communities across the 4 universities and the expertise they can bring to students as well in giving kind of one-on-one coaching. Lastly, of course, is connections. So when they leave the path or getting ready to, they know where they can go. And so this is with connections with investors as well as partner programs and leveraging these partners to put on programming as well. Overview of our pilot with help from
I think we're having some technical difficulties, Brendan. Brendan, can you hear me? Jenny?
Thank you.
Do you
Brendan,
have
can you hear
him?
us? Yeah.
my
there we go.
laptop has crashed. I'm re-entering on a backup device.
Great resiliency. Great resiliency, Brendan. Okay, take it away.
If a virtual incubator has taught me anything, it is to have a plan B with technology. So I'm going to try to join on this computer so I can share the screen, share the presentation again. So just one moment. I could keep going, but I can't talk and read at the same time. So that's my problem right now. All right. So picking up where I left off, I'm going to join here on this computer and start sharing again. The WIL funding has enabled us to go from, I had 2 mics going at the same time. 1 second. This might be bad. There we are. Hopefully this will help me share. Oh, I need to change my system preferences now to share the screen on here. So,
Brendan, would you like me to share the screen? I can share the screen. I think I have a copy of your presentation. Would that work?
Yeah, please do. It's
okay.
making me restart Zoom in order to do that as well. Thank you.
Okay, great. You keep going and just give me a moment and I'll get this pulled up.
Yeah. So originally with support through the Maple League, we're launching with 25 students and WIL has enabled us to scale that up to 165. So 150 of these students are curricular students currently enrolled in entrepreneurship courses at Bishop's and Acadia. And so these entrepreneurship courses are very much so in the business modeling and ideation stages. So early on in the process, and they all have access to the $800 stipend as well as $200 for startup expenses. And I'll wait for you to get to this. There it is. And hopefully going into next semester, there may be up to 230 curricular entrepreneurship students that could be involved in the path should we find funding in order to support these for lean stack licenses and the like across the 4 universities. So this semester it's only Acadia and Bishop's with curricular students, but we have students enrolled across all the universities with the exception of Santa Fe. Next slide, please, Jenny. So you click through a handful of times. So there's a number of texts that will come up here. So to give context to what that looks like in our program, the bulk of our students right now are in tier 1. So that's ideation and foundations in Lean Stack, and they get access to Lean Stack, our partner workshops, as well as a practice pitch day at the end. Going into next semester, the majority of our students will be in tier 2. And so that's where they will have a business model already created and have a sort of startup story established and begin working on establishing problem solution fit by doing customer validation and running some tests with their customers. It'll be here that alumni mentorship becomes essential, and they'll all be paired with an alumni mentor, as well receive seed funding from the program and a real deal pitch day to investors at the end. One more click, Jenny, in there, and our program partner currently is Propel ICT. They are one of our most important partners, because when students leave tier 2 from the path, they'll be eligible to enter into Propel ICT's accelerator. So we are working with partners like Propel to directly establish that path for students to go from working on a startup in university to doing it full-time as a career option post-graduation. The last thing I'll mention is before you go forward, tier 3, we don't have any students in that tier yet. It is more product market fit, where they already have a product and likely customers, and are doing this as an optional e-co-op with our assistance as well. Thank you, Jay. You can go forward. The first learning, and there'll be a couple of these as I go through, that not all curricular students are at the same stage. Our tier 1 students are not all working on a business model or ideation. Some we've made exceptions for are in tier 2 already, looking for mentorship as well as possible funding, and are working on looking more at problem solution fit. And so we've worked with faculty to identify those, and our entrepreneurs and residents have worked with the students specifically to make the pairings with the relevant supports. Next slide. Our programming, to give more substance to this, is really 2 categories right now, with the exception of a pitch day, and it's workshops and panels. Thus far, we've put on workshops on ideation, financial literacy, as well as funding, and panels on launching and scaling a business. And so you can see the ones on screen are bringing in entrepreneurs, and the one in the middle is bringing in coaches from Propel ICT to talk about what a successful startup takes and looks like. Next slide, which I think is learning 2. Programming is not a lab, so it's not, it cannot be mandatory, but it is additional support. So regardless of when we put on our programming, we found that there will be students unable to make it that are interested in attending or benefiting from it regardless. So we've recorded all of our programming and shifted mostly to evening programming throughout the week, and shifted the participation component to be less focused on attending every single programming piece, but rather staying engaged with the program and completing the lean stack modules. To look at the current academic environment that we're working with, we're looking at how do we increase the benefit provided to entrepreneurs on top of the entrepreneurship courses already there. So these are the courses that are currently operating at the Maple League, and really go from foundations to ideation to a bit of incubation, which I showed on the last slide with tiers. So going to the next slide, what we've tried to do is combine those courses with all of these resources in the Maple League. So everything from mentors to external funding that is available, as well as pitch competitions and the like. And so on to the next slide, what we have found is that we are focusing on our core competency, which is training, mentorship, and connections. But there's a lot more that we have to offer students, serving as a network of networks, as I mentioned earlier. So students, in order to benefit from these, need frequent communications, as well as one-on-one engagement. And that's been one of the most important learnings, that even one-on-one with a mentor is not enough. There need to be meeting with either an entrepreneur in residence, myself, or a faculty member to learn exactly what their needs are and what they can be accessing in the program. In order to do this, we have weekly newsletters, in-person updates to the courses, as well as EIR check-ins with the students. Lastly, I'll just give an example of some of our connections. Like I mentioned, these are some of those most important aspects of the program to get students launched into the real world out of the academic environment. So Propel ICT, as I mentioned, is our program partner for students to graduate into their program. The Dobson Center at Bishop's is our exclusive partner on Bishop's campus. They assist in offering mentorship services, programming and webinars, as well as promoting entrepreneurship at Bishop's campus. Similar with the Acadia Entrepreneurship Center and the Discover Box at St. FX, these are more geared towards professional support resources for small enterprise. So that may be tax and legal help, as well as funding guidance. And so we draw on them for these kind of complementary supports that we don't necessarily provide. And as I mentioned, ultimately, we're trying to increase the number of students graduating from the Maple League into this startup ecosystem. So from each of our schools into partner programs that you see on screen.
Thank you, Brendan. Thank you very much.
And, there's
sorry.
one more.
One more.
Lastly, the students need to get comfortable pitching and be introduced with investors before the big day. And so this has led to us having a pitch day, a practice pitch day for Tier 1 students that will happen in December, as well as workshops with our partner programs. Propel ICT, as I mentioned, has done one where they can get introduced to programs and investors before the big day. I have one more slide and we can take questions here. So this funding is for our fall semester pilot only. And so we are working with the university to try to seek donors and hopefully have a successful pilot regardless, to seek follow-on funding from WIL to keep this opportunity going for all entrepreneurship students. Now I will take questions. Thank you for bearing with me.
Thank you, Brendan. Any questions? Any questions? There were some questions in the chat about path. Yes, Heather, go ahead.
Hi there. So I'm wondering about with Propel, is that something that you had a partnership with before this initiative or afterwards? And is that a significant cost, that partnership?
Yeah, so I would refer to it as an in-kind partnership. There's no cost affiliated. And we were working on that partnership up to a year ago, and it got formalized in the last couple months into a formal partnership. And so when I say in kind, it is us serving as a funnel to their program, so benefiting their program by providing pitch ready entrepreneurs, if you will, and then them benefiting us through that service and helping with programming.
Great. Any other questions for Brendan or anyone? Are there any final questions? I'm conscious of the time.
There was a question in the chat that got answered in the chat. So somebody was asking for a website for the path, and Charlene provided that. So thank you, Charlene.
Yeah, thanks, Charlene.
Oh, Charlene's got her hand up. Go ahead, Charlene.
Brendan, as you know, I'm a little bit biased about the Maple League, and I think it's a really interesting education model. But I was wondering if you wouldn't mind maybe telling the people on the call here today some of the advantages, especially for small institutions with limited resources, to be able to collaborate and work together on something like this? And maybe some of the challenges, because it doesn't go without its challenges.
Yeah, I'll try to do that quickly. But it really is, and this is a motto of the Maple League, doing things that we can't do on our own and doing the things that we do on our own better. So this obviously boils down to like having a community of entrepreneurs that students can collaborate with across institutions, leveraging alumni, but more so providing a solution to 4 schools at once instead of each school trying to come up with the resources and build this project independently. There is a lot of synergy. Maybe some of the challenges definitely are coordination and engagement across these universities. And so we're always working on our programming and social events, as well as just check-ins with entrepreneurs to be fostering that community tactically at the same time.
Great. So thank you all today for joining us. Thank you, Brendan. Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Lisa. And I would just like to say before we head out that registration is open for our next session next week on October 26th, Building an Entrepreneurial Mindset Across WIL, hosted by Université de Sherbrooke, with Dr. Jean Bibot. So please check out this link and register if you haven't already registered. If you're a CWIL member, I'd like to remind you to register for our CWIL AGM taking place on November 3rd. That will be hosted on Zoom, and that link is also in the chat. Our next pair of sessions will be focused on community engaged learning. So stay tuned, pay attention to those messages coming into your inbox. And we are going to be evaluating kind of how you enjoyed today. So we'll be sending you a post-event webinar survey, and we ask that you take a few minutes to kind of fill that out. That helps learning and development immensely, and we really appreciate it. There's a link in the chat. If you have time to do that, we'd appreciate it. So finally, thank you again to our incredible panelists. Very appreciative. Thank you for your time, sharing your projects, your generosity in answering our questions. And thank you all for joining us. We'll stick around for another few minutes if you have any questions, but I just want to say big thanks. À bientôt. We'll see you next week.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Brendan.